for me.
Yeah. All right. So we got our A and B selection. Thank you guys for joining us for episode number 41 of Black Coffee and Crime. We just finished our A and B selection. We'll move right into the church announcement. Um, yeah, I'm Brandy. That's Brandy. That's Jackie. If we have any new subscribers, the way this works is we have conversations about true crime, current events, and other bullshit. This is completely unscripted. We do have subject matter that we want to address, but sometimes in conversations, you just kind of keep talking and it goes where it goes. That's what we do every week. So we talk about crimes that we found on the internet, things that we find interesting. Um, Having said that, let's go ahead and get into the church announcement and address this.
Mm.
If you have never seen this show, listened to this show, been a part of this show, we talk. Like I said, we have unscripted conversations and we talk about things that we found on Al Gore's internet. And sometimes those little subjects, we kind of go off and we talk about them, we joke about them, because sometimes in the midst of tragedy and terrible things, sometimes the best thing to do is laugh. If there's a joke that you don't get or that you find off color, that you find offensive, then obviously that joke was not what for you.
Well,
we are not talking directly about you because we didn't tag you in on anything. We don't know you personally, so we are not attacking you. We try to be sensitive to the people that are involved in these cases, but sometimes, a little jokey joke is just to break the ice. So there's that. Also, if at any time, anything that we talk about, if it's triggering to you, if it bothers you, please close your browser and join us on another week, because we'd rather you be mentally and spiritually safe than watch this show if it bothers you. Or if it just bothers you at all, you don't have to watch it. We appreciate the view. We appreciate you coming. But if this is not for you, I'm quite sure there is another show, podcast, something out there for you. It might not be for you, but we do appreciate you coming. Like we said, we like the kind of jingles, but we rather have the kind of both. So if you're not able to stay, we get it. What's another thing we need to address? Information. The things that we find and talk about are things that are openly found on the internet. You might have seen or heard about these subjects on Discovery Channel, in a documentary from Netflix or Amazon Prime or Oxygen, because guess what? Information is all the same. Everybody has the same information.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Because facts are facts.
Facts are facts. So if you see it on Forensic Files and then you see it on American Justice, guess what? They use the exact same facts, but it's all about perspective. What we do on this show is we talk about the facts of the case, but then we bring you questions and different perspectives based on how we feel and what we want to know. If you have any questions, please submit those questions on Instagram, Facebook, or at info@black.com. All right. So those are the church announcements as follows. Please respect your pastor and always obey your ushers. All right. So we're going to get on with the show. Let's go ahead and turn that on. All right. Okay. So on Al Gore's internet this week, we have Josh Duggar. You guys are not familiar with Josh Duggar. He came from the show at the time, I think it was 16 kids and counting, and then it was 17 and 18 and 19 and then 20. These people breed like rabbits. If there's a lie somewhere, please somebody stop me. So they do have like 20 kids, and then those kids have kids, and then those kids have kids, and then those kids begat, and then they begat. So they're like a whole book of numbers, in like 2000. So in the year 2000, there's a whole book of numbers. So if you've never read the book of numbers in the Old Testament, then all you have to do is look at the Duggars, and that's it. So they just keep begatting and begatting and begatting. So anyway, Josh Duggar is the oldest son, and apparently he has some issues.
Yes.
A
a
couple.
couple years ago came out that he had molested some girls, including some of his sisters. And the parents decided to send him basically away to work with a family friend to kind of maybe get him away from the situation. And this came out when his profile on Ashley Madison, which is an adult hookup website, came out. So all this stuff came out then. Well, Friday, was it Thursday or Friday? He was arrested on a federal indictment, but they were really silent about why he was arrested. But then Friday he went to court, and it was on receiving child pornography.
And possessing child pornography.
Receiving and possessing child pornography. So Josh Duggar of 20 Kids and Counting,
Nasty.
Okay, so he got 7 kids, 6 and 1 on the way. And he did molest some of his sisters and some other little girls. Do y'all think, and this is just speculation, so don't come for us because we're just talking. Do y'all think that if he wasn't indicted, that he would possibly do this to his own kids?
It's definitely potential there. I mean, the opportunity, if he is already having these kind of desires, first of all, it lets you know he doesn't matter who it is. Once the desire hit, he gonna take action. It doesn't matter who it is. And then you throw children into that. I definitely think the potential could be there.
So from what I understand is that he's not able to go back home. Like he's not able to have contact with his kids.
I don't even think he has bail. Is he eligible even for bail?
Yeah. I don't remember yet. Bail.
According to People magazine, when his court appearance on Friday, he pled not guilty to 2 charges against him: 1 count of receipt of child pornography and 1 count of possession of child pornography. Blah blah blah. It doesn't say if he got bail. At first, there was no bail. It says if he's convicted, Josh faces up to 20 years of imprisonment and fines up to $250,000 on each count. But there was another article, I think it was CBS News, something like that said that he, either CBS or Fox, that said that he cannot have contact with any of his 6 children. So obviously the courts think that he is a danger to his own kids.
Like anyone under age, I would think.
I would too.
Okay, so his parents made the decision, his very religious parents made the decision to send him off to work. It wasn't counseling, it was just like, go work somewhere for a year with a family friend.
And wasn't it like carpentry work or something?
Yeah.
Like Jesus.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, that's a parallel I wouldn't have made.
I just remember when it happened, I was like, why'd they go send him to work carpentry like he Jesus?
Maybe they thought that, because it was the last temptation of Christ and the 40 days, and maybe they thought that he needed to go through and work.
I don't think Christ had that.
You was rolling your eyes, so I don't think you agree with that. So okay.
But he molested 4 of his sisters. 4
of his sisters and possibly
of his side of the house,
like a friend
outside the household.
Mm-hmm.
Yes. So a serial child molester. Let's say that. Let's just say he's a serial child molester.
That's nasty.
You don't just stop because you have your own kids.
Thank you. Do not. No one is safe.
Obviously, because he can't have contact with his kids, so that's what the courts and the justice system believe at this time. And did you see that creepy ass mugshot? The smirk?
Where he was smirking?
And if I'm not mistaken, the situation with his sisters, didn't that come out when he was married already?
Yeah, because it came out when the Ashley Madison website got hacked or something, and everybody's information was basically put out into the media. and his was a part of that. So at that point, you knew he was seeking attention from other women, and then all of these other accusations started to come out.
I think the molestation information first. On the back of that, then Ashley Madison came out, and then it's just like, oh, like, because he lost his job with some kind of conservative family group, and he um something else he lost, and he had to go back home to sell cars.
Yeah,
But the molestation came out first, then the Ashley Madison,
because that's
and
where
then
I
he
think
was
he was
gone.
arrested, was at his family car lot or something like that. I think that's where he.
It's
Um,
just the reason I asked that is because woman, I don't want to have children with you, nasty. That's just how I think. Like you're so like it's disgusting. First of all, you already publicly humiliated me by like you said, molestation came first. So not only are you molesting and then you come out that it's your sisters, but then I got to deal with you cheating on me, and then that's a big public issue. And then I'm for to lay up and have 7 children with you, and then it come out that it's child pornography, and you can't tell me that he didn't have some kind of signs that should already been in your head that he possibly is this type of person. It's just normally those things kind of click. I just could.
right, but see, in those religious communities, the marriages are already prearranged, and this is the reason why he wasn't taken to the police in the first place, was because they want to kind of keep it in house, and we'll take care of it, and and God will take care of it. We'll just pray it away. Um, yeah, obviously, I don't necessarily think that prayer, you can pray stuff like this away. Prayer helps, but you need counseling, and you need prevention and things like that. So just going out
And
there
and
and
being religious does not exclude you from the law.
no,
Period.
it should not. It should not at all.
Now,
It should not at all. So that's a new story. So I'm quite sure we'll be hearing a lot about Josh Duggar in the future. Hopefully his wife Anna. Um, I'm girl, get out. Don't get
except
out.
divorce, you need to be filing divorce papers now.
Right. I understand standing by your man, but this ain't it. This not your struggle, sis. Going to get out. Going with one of your brothers who is open um, to you getting out of this situation and out of the fold. You don't deserve it. Your kids don't deserve it. Yeah, get out. So I did want to talk about Josh Duggar. Now, this is another recent story. This is a tragic story out of Dallas. Um, on Friday, an 8-year-old autistic boy went missing, and here in the Dallas, in the DFW area, and he was nonverbal, 8 years old, nonverbal, and apparently he was a runner. So they were trying to get him ready for school. He just took off running. They couldn't find him. So there was like a massive search for him, and he was last seen. His name was Cadle or Idle, and he was last seen on or around Munford Drive Friday morning. And if that's off of 635, just in case anybody wants to know. Unfortunately, he was found Saturday in the same area. He was found in a local pool. So they did find him. So prayers go out to the family of this little boy. The mother said something about his mother's name was Champagne Williams, and they had checked at all the hospitals, his school, and everything to see, if he had been picked up, or he had gone to the hospital or gone to school. He had not. One of the things she said was, "I'm not going to be able to sleep or anything until my baby's back home, until he's safe and warm." But unfortunately, they found him Saturday. And the medical examiner was able to confirm that. So prayers out to Miss Williams and the rest of his family, and it's crazy because I saw the face of this little boy, and I swore that I knew this little boy because he looks very familiar to me, and I got scared because he looks like a friend's son who is also autistic, and it scared the hell out of me. So I had to read the article to know that it wasn't him. Still didn't make me feel any better because it's still someone's son. But it was scary because it looked just like him. It looked just like him. And so, just be careful I don't think this, you know,
Autistic children just,
yeah, and they have no, some
especially
children,
not,
depending on where they are on the spectrum, they don't have
because their natural
control.
instinct is it's
Yeah, they don't have
his natural
impulse
instinct is the
control
second he could have probably saw something shiny down the street
and took
and he
off.
gonna take off.
And just
I mean,
that
he
quick,
gonna go,
and just that quick, they couldn't find it. Just that quick.
and it really is like that because I've worked with some autists. It you have, I mean, it is nothing the mother could have did differently. I hope no one is saying you shouldn't know that it's stupid. Don't
Yeah,
say that.
yeah.
All they take is a split second. Like they see things that no one can, and they view the world much different than we do. Anyone who isn't autistic, and he probably saw it could have been a bird,
It could have been anything.
a squirrel, and he just gonna be gone by the time she did.
And
And
that's
this,
true. That's true
all he
for
take
any
is a
child.
few corners, and he gone.
That's true for any
Literally.
child. A child can get away from you quite quickly. And that is the
Mhm.
worst panic feeling that you can have as a parent, is that your child gets away from you and you can't find them. If you've ever lost your kid in a grocery store and you call them and they're running from you, it's the worst thing in the world. So again, you know, um, just if you are a praying person, uh, you know, just send the family of this young man, send his family some prayers because they're going to need it. All
Yeah.
right. The last thing before we get started on our case called about the Black Doodler, um, Brandy, you had found a case, an article about this man who threw an alligator, a 3.5 foot alligator, through the window at Wendy's. Listen, I'm gonna say it again. This man threw a 3.5 foot gator through the drive-through window at a Wendy's. Y'all could just take a guess of where this happened. Where on earth could this have possibly happened? Where you would throw a gator through a window? There's only one place on earth that this would occur.
One place immediately it comes to mind. It's the sunshine.
What do you think? Florida.
Yeah, just
Florida
just
on the program. I'm convinced that Florida is the new den of iniquity. Like everything bad happens in Florida. And apparently, there's like 3 or 4 other cases of people either throwing alligators at people, robbing convenience stores with 5-foot alligators, and all in Florida. So if you guys haven't seen the video, I will post a video to our Instagram and Facebook pages. But
this is the thing that really got me that I had to discuss with Brand. This man was in a pickup truck. So I'm thinking that, wow, this man threw his pet through the window. Like, why would you throw first of all, I don't know how you would have alligator for a pet, but just say. Then I read this was not his pet. He zoomed and picked up this alligator on the side of the road. So he had an alligator that that didn't know him, and he didn't know the alligator. And then so I'm like, he threw him in the pickup truck in the cab and click it. No, this man didn't have him in the pickup. This man had him inside the cab, like they were friends. Like he knew this alligator. Like, how do you go to swiping an alligator on the side of the road? And I'm thinking you just throw him in the back of the pickup truck, but no, you had him inside the cab, like y'all was friends. Y'all knew each other. Now, how do you keep an alligator from snapping at your ankles in time for you to go?
And 3.5 foot long. That's a pretty significant size.
Yeah.
If you ever been Wendy's, that line be long. So you had that alligator in there. You ordered one of them high-priced drinks. Roll up to, and he didn't even pay for that drink, so he got a theft charge.
Larceny. It was a larceny charge. Yeah.
They're approximately. So I don't know if the alligator was just confused and just like, I don't know what's happening. I'm just gonna stay still. I don't know if he's trying to eat me. Let me just don't make no sudden movements. Like
Okay, and if you could, when you watch the
I'm
video,
baffled. I actually thought this was his pet. I actually thought, like, why would he do his
No,
pet
no,
like
no,
that?
no.
But
He
it's a
picked him up.
random gator.
they were
He just
unacquainted.
Picked
They
him
were
up on the
unacquainted.
side of the road and threw him inside the cab, not in the back, inside the cab of the pickup truck.
imagine that gator like, what the hell is
This
going on?
man has zero nerves to put an alligator inside the cab of his truck, ride around, go through a drive-through line.
Yeah.
And then if you could see with the quickness that he threw this thing, like the girl gets his drink,
doing like
gives him
this?
his drink, turns back to the register, and he launches this thing through the window so quickly that the camera inside of the Wendy's didn't even catch the alligator going through the window. You saw the motion of him going to pick it up and throw it, but you don't actually see the alligator go through the window. That's how quick he was launching it through the window.
We didn't see the dismount. We just seen the.
We seen the setup, but not the dismount.
And I called it. I said, "Watch, this is gonna jump out that window." Did that sister jump out that window?
Fish jumped out the window. She sat in the window and she's
Smart.
kind of laughing, but you know she's nervous and scared. And she jumped out the window at work. So I don't know if sis has a GoFundMe, but she gonna need it because she ain't going back over there.
Ain't.
No, she got in her car and left and went home.
Mm-mm.
Yeah, pretty
Yeah,
much.
that's my shift. She took the microphone on. She took all that home.
Yeah, she's not going back. She's not going back. So only in Florida does this happen. And again, while we're watching the videos of this guy throw the alligator through the window, we also saw a video of a guy who had like a 5.5-foot alligator go through a window go through a convenience store. He robbed the store holding this big ass alligator like a shotgun.
Got a 6-pack.
He went into the cooler. He went into the cooler.
He had it tucked like this.
The tail was all hanging down.
Like a rifle going through the store.
Then he said they must got some good because he don't have no memory of it.
He don't have no memory where he got the alligator from, why he used the alligator.
Wait, it's not his alligator?
No.
I don't know what is going on in Florida that people just randomly go and pick up gators and use them as weapons. And they're not even taping the mouths of these alligators. These alligators are just open and ready to talk. Florida on the program, y'all. Florida.
They're going to get it together.
Listen,
Leave them gators alone. They just completely, it's like they stunned. They don't even know what to do. They can't even snap or nothing. They just completely stunned that you're walking up and you're just scooping them up and going on about your business. Just leave them alone.
Listen,
Let them
there
mind
are
their own business. They just trying to get over there.
places in this world that I do not want to go. Okay. Top of that list is Florida. I don't want to see Busch Gardens. I don't want to see Disney World. I don't want to see.
You're not gonna see me.
Yeah, I don't want to go to Florida. It seems like a scary place.
It's nice.
I don't want to go. Well, no, Jackie, because when you guys went to Florida on your family vacation, what happened? The whole bus leaked when you guys went to Florida. And before
It was
you guys
horrible.
went to Florida,
It was almost like a hurricane.
yes, their bus got flooded out from the top.
And our bus, the water, the winds, and everything was so strong that it leaked in our traveling bus in our luxury bus. It just everything.
So all y'all bonnets got wet.
Everything. Blankets, bonnets, pillows, clothes, everything.
And then I warned
It was sunny. It was sunny. And then all of a sudden,
I warned her because when she said we're going to Florida, I was like, and then what I said was, I told her, I said, listen, just listen to me. I said, there was a story, and it was like 2 days before they went. I said, this guy was riding a motorcycle in Florida on the freeway, Brandy, and he got struck by lightning while he's riding home from work on his motorcycle.
Did he check the weather?
Yes, it was beautiful. It was literally beautiful. And then out of nowhere, it was just like, whoa, the whole bus. We were, what the heck?
And y'all
It was.
just kept driving.
We trying to get back to Texas by then. By then, it's time to go. It's time to go home.
Yeah. Start
It
trying
was
to tell
interesting. I mean, I'm saying that it's a nice state because I mean we may have someone from Florida listening, but it was interesting, very much so.
Well,
listen.
I've never had any crazy situations in Florida.
Did
But
you go
see,
to
I'm
the?
not my business. I,
I'm on the business that paid me. I don't
I
know
don't
what
mess
happened.
with alligators. I don't be messing around with crazy looking folks.
No, yeah, can't do
I
nothing.
check the weather.
Well, I'm not trying to go to Florida. My family is in the process right now of trying to decide what we're going to do for our family trip for the summer. One of the suggestions was Florida. Myself and my favorite niece, we have gone ahead and vetoed that. No,
Y'all ain't right.
no.
No,
So
don't do it, Greg.
we're not going to Florida. It did make the short list. No, I'm quite sure it's beautiful. The water's great, but no.
And I and you know what? I've been to Miami. Miami was okay. It really is. This before it got overcrowded. It was actually all right. It was all right.
Nah, I'm good.
Grand.
I'm good on Florida. Y'all keep it. It's confirmation every time you think about going somewhere, it's just confirmation that
Hmm.
that's not it for me. Like I want to go on a cruise, but every time I want to go on a cruise, a rogue wave overtakes a whole cruise ship. It's just
We
it's
ain't seen
confirmation.
no rogue wave overtake nothing.
Randy, you know what? I'm gonna send you as many documentaries as you watch. You've never seen a documentary about rogue waves. I'm going to send you
Yeah,
the
but they ain't knocked
documentary.
over no cruise ship. Do you know how
Yes,
big
they have. That's a whole other show.
they have
We're gonna
not
talk about it.
overtaken a cruise ship?
Yes. Yes.
Do you
I'm
know
gonna
how big
send.
a cruise ship is?
Yes, and do you know how big a rogue wave can be?
Yeah, but they have not knocked over no cruise ship. Now, if you in a little yacht,
No. The last one happened in Norway.
that wasn't
Chicken
no big old cruise ship.
like pieces like chicken wings in a brown bag.
You have more of a chance of
You know
probably
what?
getting a aircraft in an airplane crash than a
But if
rogue
I
wave
go down in an airplane crash, I'm just dead. But
a rogue wave hitting
a rogue wave, I'm gonna be tossed around, seasick, have diarrhea, and then I'm gonna die.
My cruise ship was doing that. It did a lot of turbulence.
you had a rogue wave and y'all flipped over.
No, she extra. But I'm just saying it's a little rocky. But I enjoy. You know what? I
That's
recommend
the best
everybody go on
sleep
a
you're
cruise.
gonna get. That's the
Brandy,
best.
how hard have I been trying to get you to go on a cruise? I have been trying. It is.
And I've
I
been
told her
trying
it's
to
not
go, but something
horrible,
always
but she
happens.
is convinced that something bad is going to happen to her. And I'm like,
It's either gonna be the rogue wave,
it's.
a leviathan, a giant squid, or the
Oh, wait a
kraken.
minute. What? A
Something.
who? Go back. A what?
A
The
giant squid that's bigger
leviathan.
than a cruise ship.
Listen, the leviathan, the kraken, or something like that is going to, or a rogue wave is going to
A
overtake.
giant squid
Y'all ain't heard
that
about giant
that
squid?
is swimming around the
Not bigger than a
ocean.
cruise ship.
That there's bigger than a cruise ship that no one has saw. Who check these waters all the time. But that day, they decided to come down from the depths of the depths to come up here while Brandy decided to get on a cruise ship and be like, and I know I tricked them for the
Listen,
last three, 4 or 5 decades. They ain't found me, but Brandy got on a cruise ship, so I'm gonna go and bubble on up to the top.
there are more things in the heaven and earth than dripped of in your philosophy jacket, okay? Hamlet, what is that? Act 1, Scene 5. There you go. All right, let's go on to our North
My
Florida.
poor
We're going to
Tay,
talk
she ain't
about
gonna never get on that ship. She ain't gonna never get on the ship.
I'm gonna have to get some traveler's insurance because if something happens to me and I don't think I'm covered by Leviathan. I don't think I'm covered for that. I don't think I'm covered for cracking. So I want my family to be covered. So I need to find out what kind of insurance I need if my ship is overtaken by the Kraken. Let's move
Yeah, I saw
on.
the.
Let's move on. All right. So we're going to move on because apparently we talked too much and people want to know exactly when in the episode we
Oh
talked
yeah,
about our subject. We talk about our subject when we get to it. You can speed through.
and period.
Yeah. All right. So this week's case is the case of the Doodler or the Black Doodler. And who the Doodler is, this is an unsolved case, or should we say an unresolved case, because it seems like law enforcement know exactly who this person is, but they're unable to charge and convict them. But basically, between 1974 and 1975, January of 1974 and September of 1975, a young, good-looking black man in San Francisco killed five confirmed murders of white gay men. But here's the thing. He would lure them in because he was an artist. So he actually sketched his victims, gave them the sketch of themselves, and then bludgeoned and or slashed their throats or stabbed them in like rage-like killings. Now, if you are at all familiar with anything about serial killers, you know that the 70s in the Northwest, in California, Oregon, and Washington, this is the age of the serial killer. This is when the term serial killer was coined, was during this time. So just as a contemporary, you got Ted Bundy, who was active in Washington, Gary Ridgway, who was also active in Washington. You have the Boston Stranglers. The Hillside Stranglers. You have the zebra killings are going on at the same time. And we did an episode on the zebra killings, which were 4 or 5 young men who were deliberately targeting white people to randomly kill to start a race war.
Yep.
Happening at the same time that this is happening in San Francisco. So all of this is going on at the same time. But the variable here is that these are killings of homosexuals. So when taken as individual killings, no one paid attention to it. It wasn't a big deal. They're homosexuals. They were all found on or near known cruising spots like the Golden Gate Park, Ocean Park. Land's End. Ocean Beach. So the law enforcement were like, oh, they're just gay killings, whatever. Even the newspapers would put very small blurbs in the newspaper about these men who were found dead. And then they put them together and then they knew that they had a serial killer. They interviewed their suspect, but they couldn't charge him. They interviewed him, but they couldn't charge him, and they knew who it was, but they couldn't charge him because of 3 very prominent people. There was a diplomat who survived an attack, a very well-known entertainer who survived the attack, and another person who survived the attack, and they refused to be named and to testify because they were scared of being outed. And this is the reason why 45 years later, the Black Doodler or the Doodler has never been publicly identified. So we have 5 confirmed deaths and up to 16 suspected deaths since that time. So imagine that for 45 years, you know exactly who your killer is, but there's not a damn thing you can do about it. This is one of the biggest unsolved or unresolved cases in California history. And at first, when I was
no one really knows about this.
Right. Right. I had seen a documentary, or article years ago, about this case. And quite recently, maybe a month ago, I heard about him again. So I was like, we probably need to talk about this. And as recent as 2018, they have reopened the case on the Doodler.
Mm-hmm.
So it is something that, and there was an article in March of this year in the San Francisco Chronicle, and there's a podcast um, that came out, and this is why there's an article in the San Francisco Chronicle this year about the Doodler. So that was what renewed, public interest into this case. Um, okay, so there's not much we know about the actual suspect, so we can't talk about demographics. All we know is he's young. He was young. He was Black, and he was good looking. And our sketches because of the three survivors. So he left three survivors, so they were able to give uh, um, a description or an identikit as to what he may have looked like. And then there's also age progression to the age of 63, because they gauge his age and maybe 18 to 25 at the time in 1974. So there's not much that we know. Most of the things that we know about this case are the victims, and that's it. That's it. And then everything else you have to speculate about: motive. Why did he do it? Where did he come from? Um, where did his victims come from? How did he connect the victims? How did he get the victims? And so this is the conversation that Brandy and I were having um, about all of these things. And because he's Black, was this racially motivated? Or was it simply motivated because, was it outwardly racially motivated because he attacked white men? Or was it more internal because maybe he was gay and wasn't able to express himself as a gay person? So, these are questions.
Imagine the flex of walking around knowing that you did this, knowing that they know you did it,
and can't catch you.
and ain't nothing they can do about it. And you so bold that you possibly have done because these people won't say nothing really, or they don't want to come out and let it be known that they know it's you.
Right.
Imagine that kind of like that's some serious.
Because two of the
he is probably cocky.
I think it was an
surviving victims are still alive.
An actor, entertainer,
that
and
ego.
But the thing is, with the three people, they at that time, I think they said only about 20% of the gays in the cat in San Francisco at that time were open. And this is a time where they will put your name, your address, your occupation in the paper if they caught you
cruising
women's clothes or at a gay bar or whatever. And a lot of these people were not they were not out and did not want to be out. Some of them were married, some weren't. Some were just people didn't want to ruin their careers. So if you have these three people who know or had an eyewitness with this killer who cannot come forward out of fear of people finding out that they're gay.
Right.
So they basically let a serial killer go. There was so much fear behind the fact, and it was warranted behind the fact that they will be exposed for being gay. This was in the early to mid 70s. So
and at the time there was still a sodomy law in California. The sodomy laws in California weren't repealed until 1976. So basically it meant that being gay was illegal. It was illegal to be gay. And just to add context to that, in Ireland, being gay wasn't legal until just a few years ago in Ireland. Even though that is a very religious and Catholic country, there's North Ireland and the Republic of Ireland. But you could still be jailed in Ireland for being gay. You could still be jailed in England for being gay in the last 20 years. And also here, when you think about cases about Matthew Shepard, who was killed, I think, in Wyoming, the gay young man, like maybe 20 years ago, Matthew Shepard. You think about kids now who are still being bullied for being gay. So just imagine in the 1970s when you still had, cruising locations and, like you said, secret gay bars and things like that. And you could literally lose everything with just the speculation of
Yeah.
being gay. Um, think about one of the most famous AIDS cases that we know is Rock Hudson. Rock Hudson had always been gay. Everyone in Hollywood knew that Rock Hudson was gay. They had him marry a secretary. They set him up with women so that it would outwardly look for the public that this very tall, good-looking man was straight. It didn't come out until mid '80s when he you saw Rock Hudson. He looked emaciated. He was in a wheelchair, and then you found out. Well, since everyone knew, but it was confirmed that yes, he was gay. That was when he was near death. That was when he was near death. So just imagine the impact that it would have had on a regular person's career or life to be outed. So it was still a real fear 30 years ago, 45 years ago, that if I'm outed, I'm losing everything. And honestly, I could possibly die. I'm now targeted, because like you said, Brady, they were printing their personal information in the newspaper. So you could go to someone's house if they were outed as gay. So this is why a serial killer has been able to roam and possibly kill 10 to 11 more people in the last 45 years. Unfettered. Can't catch him because he can't necessarily be identified publicly.
And we know that one person that was killed, definitely there was some sexual activity that had gone on previous to the killing, because man pants, were they at his ankles or something?
Yeah.
His ankles and his underwear were missing.
And his underwear were missing.
And again, they were found in known cruising spots for
right.
For,
3 of the men were found at Ocean Beach, 2 in Golden Gate Park, and another gentleman in the Land's End. And these were all known gay haunts. They weren't too far. If you see a map, they weren't too far away from each other. One of the things, the ideas that I had in my mind was, since this gentleman, the Doodler, was an artist, that maybe he was using his art as a way to justify why he was in those areas at certain times. But, because if you were in a cruising area, the police saw you, they would already know that you were homosexual and they could possibly harass and arrest you. But then also he used that as a ploy, because if someone draws a picture of you and you're good looking, you kind of look innocuous, you look non-threatening. That's a way to break the ice. And then at that point, they would be able to approach the gentleman and kind of give whatever signals, nonverbal signals, that yes, I'm available, I'm open to whatever. And then, you have your little clandestine encounter, and then he kills them. But one thing that Brandy said was that some of his victims, he found in restaurants and in bars. So as a Black man in San Francisco, there weren't too many establishments that were open, even gay establishments that were open to Black men. How did he know that his victims were either tourists or out of towners or unfamiliar with the area? How did he know that? If there weren't too many Black gays in San Francisco, which is crazy to think about in the 70s, but there weren't too many Black gays in San Francisco during the time. How did he know? How did he move around? How did he maneuver if he was basically the odd man out? How did he get around?
I mean,
without anybody detecting him?
I think sometimes you can kind of. I think he was a known person on the scene, not as maybe, a known person as far as he didn't rock any boats. He might have been seen around the scene, not necessarily somebody that everybody had interacted with, but, you just, okay, I recognize that like you would recognize somebody from your local that works at your Walgreens because you're always there and you're not necessarily, have a relationship with
Mm-hmm.
like I know that they work at Walgreens. I see them all the time. So it might have just been that he was part of the scene, but he wasn't like like they said, there were several men at that time who were sketch artists that would be at the bars and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Um, drawing pictures, either, you know, people paying for sketches and things like that. So he might have been somebody who was just, or who people seen around the scene, but didn't actually really engage or know, or he did not look very threatening, or, he just kind of was able to fit in a certain way where he wouldn't be, um,
Perspective.
wouldn't stand out, I guess is what.
Right. And
Yeah,
another
yeah,
thing is
yeah. I was
that,
thinking the same thing. So that he may have been just considering that these areas are a little exclusive because they're a little bit more private. And if he's someone that was already frequently visiting these places, you kind of get familiar with the percentage of people or the people that you see all the time. And a lot of times foreigners do kind of stand out a little bit because they, may not behave as someone else, or, if he's observing that well, then he
yeah,
probably would be able to recognize
yes. And also because of the reckless nature of their lifestyle.
it. Mm.
These men were willing to take risks then that gay men are not willing to take now. Now, you might have some down low men or trades that are still engaging in risky behavior now because they don't necessarily think that they're gay, because they don't live a gay lifestyle, but they enjoy gay sex every now and again. So they live a little recklessly. But especially then, because no one could really openly enjoy a gay lifestyle. Um, if you lived on the fringes of a gay community. So you might have some of these men, especially these men that were targeted, except for Stephen, the drag queen. He was the only one who seemed really openly gay. The other men may have been on the fringes of the gay community, not, um, their families or their friends or their coworkers may have suspected that they were gay,
Mm-hmm.
but it was never confirmed. So they might have been taking unnecessary risk because of it. So they couldn't really hold committed relationships or long-term relations with anyone because of them wanting to preserve themselves and preserve their straight looking lifestyle. So they were taking these risks with these young men. And honestly, even though the 70s and the 80s was like serial killer haven, no one really knew what a serial killer was. You had the tales of Jack the Ripper, but that was Jack the Ripper. But no one really knew what a serial killer was. So people were still engaging. This is after the age of enlightenment and sexual revolution of the 60s.
Yeah, they thought that people who kill usually only kill people that they
That were
know,
doing bad things. And
Right.
or
yeah,
people that they know within your circle. It's not some random person who doesn't know you is just gonna come slash you up. They believe that people who killed only killed people that they knew, and they would not kill people that they did not know.
right. But that's exactly what happened. That's exactly what happened during this time. So yeah, they were living recklessly, having reckless encounters, and unfortunately, some of these men ran into the doodler. Um, One of the questions that I had when we're talking about this age of serial killers was the overlap in a couple of different cases in parallels to other cases. So we mentioned the zebra murders. Now, the zebra murders happened between October of 1973 and April of 1974. And it was basically 4 or 5 young men who were had like this racial agenda to kill white people.
Yeah.
And they were called the zebra murders because that was the channel that the police used to communicate with each other. And what happened was they would just randomly, viciously kill white people. It didn't matter. If you were white and they came up on you, they were going to kill you. What the police did during that time was a racial profile. They would go and they would round up young black men because they didn't know exactly who they were looking for. They were just young and black, and that was it. And they would give these men card after they were questioned so that if the police approached them again, they could show this card to say, I've already been questioned and let go. Well, this is kind of the same situation that they had with the Doodler because they didn't know who they were looking for. So you have an overlap in the timeline of the zebra killings and the Doodler killing white people in San Francisco. So you think about, because that was one of the first things I think about, like that I thought about was like, what if the guys who committed the zebra killings, the zebra murders, were the same guy who killed these gay men?
Mm-hmm.
Because there's a great resentment in the Black community for homosexuals. So what if it was an overlap? What if it was them, but they were arrested in 1974, and then the zebra killings continued through September of 1975. I mean, the Doodler continued killing through September of 1975. But I thought that was really interesting, and it really kind of, sent something off in my head. And then also Samuel Little. Samuel Little is the most prolific killer in American history. He also drew his victims, made paintings of his victims, and he was very active. He was active throughout the United States during this time. And so I was like, what if it was Samuel Little? Like, could it have been Samuel Little? His victims, as far as we know, were women. We have 63 confirmed cases for Samuel Little, but there's 90. What if that 90 included, could that 90 have included the 5 confirmed plus the possible 16 murders? Because they don't, because at this point I'm thinking they don't know, but they do. But it's very interesting that all of these things were possibilities at the time. They didn't know who Samuel Little was because he was able to weave in and out. Maybe he was a truck driver. They don't know until the early 2000s, 2012, they linked Samuel Little to all these murders. So it's crazy that all of these things were happening at the same time. And it's a possibility. I know this is not what happened, but it's a possibility. It's probable that either the zebra murders could have, they could have been included in the zebra murders, or these men could also be included into Samuel Little's, a clutch of murders as well. That you have these Black serial killers existing in the exact same place, possibly existing in the exact same place at the exact same time.
But how they end up getting a well, they had the sketch from the 3 people that lived.
Mm-hmm.
They end up getting the sketch out, and what happened was they received 3 calls because of this sketch. The first call was from an anonymous woman that gave a name and a license plate. This is the guy that you're looking for. Then a secretary called and said that a man with that description was seeing a psychiatrist in his office. So we have these 2. Then a couple of days later, this psychiatrist calls and says that I think that my patient could be the Doodler. This was a man who was having issues with his sexuality, and him being gay, and he and saying that he had been healed from getting therapy, and which could be a reason why they say it could be a reason why he stopped killing, because he believed he was healed from homosexuality. But yeah, this doctor said that this my patient is the Doodler. He explained everything to the officers, and so we have 3 people who have the same name, says he looks like the sketch, and they actually call him in. But because there is no evidence, they have no evidence, they have no one to will come in
and corroborate the stories
and lie or anything. You have to let him go. You have nothing on him.
And he cooperated with the police. He was very open, and he cooperated with the police. But here's the thing about those three calls. Only one of those calls would have held any weight in court, which was the lady who called. The secretary and the therapist would have been held by basically what we call HIPAA laws today.
But isn't there a law that if a person is harmed, if a person is considered dangerous and it has potential of harming someone, that the therapist is able to report them?
There is now. I'm not sure that in 1974, 75, that the law would have allowed that. Even now,
I would say even now, it's still a very
thin chance that a judge will allow testimony or records from a doctor or psychiatrist therapist to be entered into court evidence. One of the most famous cases where that did happen was the Menendez brothers, where they confessed to their therapist that they murdered their parents, and then the therapist's girlfriend, he had been doing some pillow talking, and the therapist's girlfriend spoke to someone, and that's how it was found out that that they had confessed to the therapist. And then the judge allowed that testimony. But it's up to a judge, and again, that's very recent. But I don't think during that time that would have been allowed. Like, there was a very clear protection of the patient rights over anything. Like, you could, back in the day, you could tell your therapist or your doctor or your lawyer absolutely anything, and you knew that you were safe from prosecution because you were protected by that privilege, by that relationship that you have with your doctor or your attorney.
Well, clearly this doctor did not want to get involved. He just wanted to say what he knew. He did not, he wasn't about to go testifying or anything like that. He kind of wanted to stay away from it, which is the reason why it was so hard to find out who he was, what his name possibly was, to go back now to look to see maybe if he had notes, or the guy that they think was the doctor had died in the early 2000s, and at this point he'd be 90 something years old. And so you're kind of piecing stuff together with people who might know. And you're going back all these years. It's been 40 something years, 30 years. And you also have to think that right after the 70s came the 80s, where a lot of gays died due to AIDS. So those are possibly people who could have seen something or had an experience with the doodler.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of information is gone,
been lost.
Lost.
Let's see. I think we had another question about
this guy. The guy with this name, he's still a person of interest. They know he's alive. They know where he is. They know that he is now openly gay. They have his DNA, but they have nothing to tie anything to, because there's nothing, no real evidence to tie anything to.
How frustrating is that you know who it is? You absolutely know. And that's why I said that this is an unresolved case rather than unsolved. They've solved this case. It's just unresolved. They cannot close this case unless the actor or the diplomat, for whatever reason, maybe on their deathbed, because they would have to be in their 70s, 80s, 90s at this point. If they came out and said something in a last moment confession or something like that, to say that this was, I know who this person is. This is what happened to me. Let me tell you.
Which also could be why the police are so adamant, like when reporters are trying to get information by shutting everybody down, like this is active.
Right.
We're going to give you a little bit.
Possibly why they reopened the case in 2018.
Yeah, I'm like, they're very adamant, like, hey, we're not talking about
survivors could possibly.
And this is from, and I was like, oh, they want it. Oh, they want it so bad that they won't even talk about it because they don't want to mess anything up that they've already done.
They've even investigated other people because there were two guys that they brought in for questioning that were in Riverside, California, to have possibly been the Doodler.
And these guys were from Redondo Beach, but they caught them or they apprehended them in Riverside in 1977. These two gentlemen, again unnamed, were connected to almost 28 murders. Here's the thing, Brandy and I are from Riverside. And what we talked about last night was, who are these guys? Because if they're from Riverside, who are their families? Who are they connected to? In the 1970s, Riverside was a very Riverside is basically a farming community. It was a farming community with orange groves and citrus. That's what it's known for. Even through the 80s and the early 90s, Riverside was still almost rural. The only thing that was out in Riverside was the citrus groves and March Air Force Base. And as far as Black families, every Black family, I can guarantee you that every Black family in the 70s, 80s, and early 90s knew every other Black family that lived anywhere in Riverside County. Anywhere in Riverside County. You were either related to them, you went to school with them, you moved from the same southern city with them, something. That's how everyone in Riverside was connected. You moved from the South to maybe Detroit to work, and somehow you ended up in Riverside. So it's crazy that you had two suspected serial killers arrested in the 70s. And I was like, I don't even know who these people are. Who are they? So that's possibly a subject of another show, because Brandy and I are going to ask our folks about this, because someone has to know something about who these two
That'd be interesting.
Now, I will say this, and I might not be able to talk about this. Well, it's public record, but it's still a little touchy. There was a murder of a police officer by two guys in the 70s in Riverside. So I was wondering last night if these two gentlemen were possibly the same two gentlemen that were arrested. I don't know, but I'm going to try to find this out. So if I find out and I won't be excommunicated from the family, I will try to come back and talk about this. Yeah, because and this is another thing. This is why I think the Doodler was so vengeful and so full of rage. It's because Black families, we do not talk about the other. We do not talk about the other. We do not talk about mental illness. We do not talk about homosexuality. We do not talk about anything, PTSD, or what they used to call shell shock for people coming back from war. We don't talk about those things. So me being, I'm just playing about being excommunicated. I don't care. But I don't care.
I know you didn't. So,
but these are things that people worried about. So I think this is why the Doodler held so much rage within him. And the question I asked at the beginning of this, was this race motivated because he targeted white men? Was it opportunity because there weren't any Black gays in San Francisco? And like Brandy said last night when we were talking, if he targeted other Black gays, he would have been quickly caught because everyone knew who was Black and who was gay in their community, whether or not they were confirmed.
right.
You knew who was gay in your community, so you would have known who's missing.
You knew who showed up to the bars. You knew who went. There was very few Black gay clubs, and you probably knew the regulars. Right. So if Leroy and Jimmy and Levon and all these folks come up missing, you'd be like, oh, I seen them talking to. I mean, you're all in one spot. If you randomly, I mean, you pretty much could kill white people. There was way more white gays in the Castro and in the Tenderloin area than Black people. You definitely if these people stood out because you've never seen them at the scene, or they look like they don't belong to the scene, or they look, just their behavior, or
Mm-hmm.
there really wasn't a place where you could just be openly gay. And if you
Right.
found a place where you can be openly gay, your I
This
mean
wouldn't have been an issue.
body language,
Right.
Think
Mm-hmm.
about
I think it was
think about Fred Kavanaugh when you said that people who didn't act a certain way or were noticeably uncomfortable. Fred Kavanaugh, which was one of the first people found in Ocean Beach, uh, he was 50 years old. He was from
Mm-hmm.
Canada. He was one that they called him a John Doe. He was like John Doe 83 or something like that because he went largely unidentified for quite some time. They were barely able to, his face was decomposed and really messed up because he was in the water. His sister had to come and identify him from Canada, and she did not take the body back home. So what they're thinking about Mr. Kavanaugh was that uh, he did fight in World War II, that he was gay, but not outed to his family completely, and that he lived as a bachelor. So his family may have known, and they were very religious, they're Catholic. They may have known that he was gay and then just kind of let him live his life. And then once he was identified after the murder, they just left that alone. In the article from the San Francisco Chronicle, based on the podcast, and I'll post that in the description, um, they went to go and try to connect with some of the family members, and there was a great nephew who said that he had asked questions about Kavanaugh and no one talked about him in their family. So he was almost like a perfect victim, someone who
Mm-hmm.
is by himself, living a bachelor's life, probably only visiting inside the community when he needed companionship, but not permanent companionship because he didn't want
Mm-hmm.
anybody to know that he was really gay. So, it was like a hookup culture when the opportunity would arise. So he was almost a perfect victim. In all the victims is very sad because they were living on the fringes, except for the drag queen
Right.
Steven. Uh, they were all living on the fringes of the gay community, and they made themselves as perfect victims and perfect victims for the doodler's rage because he, like them, were living on the fringes of the gay community. They could not live openly. So what he saw in them was the same thing that he was himself. Someone who was unable to live openly, conflicted, even more so conflicted because he's black and gay. You know, if you think about Caribbean cultures or continental African cultures, being gay, you could still be killed in the street for being gay, you know? So just think about the conflict. And he saw that in these men that they couldn't be out. And so he killed them because he could not kill himself. Um, I just thought
Uh,
about this. Remember
yeah.
was it the Rainbow Club in Florida where the guy went in there in the club and he killed like 60
Yeah.
something people? He was gay. He was an Arabic man who was gay, a Muslim man who was gay. And he
But
went in
and
and killed the people in that gay club because he could not participate openly
mhm.
in that community.
And being gay. Yep.
This is
Mm-hmm.
like the profile of the doodler.
Mm-hmm.
Could not participate, could not openly participate. Uh, I can just imagine him trying to go into his mother's or his grandmother's home and say in 1974 and say, "Grandma or Mama, I'm gay." No, you're not. You're confused.
And don't
No,
say
you're
it no more.
not. Boy, go in that room and go pray. Come here, let me pray for you.
Yeah, and don't
Get
say it
out of
no
my
more.
face with
Ever.
that. And that's the thing that happens in the black community is we have a lot of get out of my face with that because we do not want to confront or confirm the things that are very plainly in our face. And so we are like, just get out of my face with that. He not gay, ain't nothing wrong with that boy. He's just a little sweet. You know what I mean? We've heard that a lot. He's just a little sweet. I had a cousin, Brandy and I have a cousin.
where he's that way,
Uh-huh.
where he's
We
that
had
way.
right, was that way. Everybody knew he was that way. He died of complications of AIDS. Even then, even then, no one would openly say that he was gay. He died in the 90s, I believe. Um, Even then, no one would openly say that he was gay. Everyone knew he was gay.
Mm-hmm.
It wasn't even a question whether or
Mm-hmm.
not he was gay. Did anyone treat him differently within our family? No. But you could not openly say that this man was gay. It was not even a thing. And you know what I mean? So that was 20 years past the Doodler, past the 70s. And someone died of complications of the AIDS virus, and you still don't want to talk about it. You still don't want to talk about it. So I can just imagine the conflict that the victims had, especially those who survived. And they have to live with the fact that their tormentor is walking around freely because they still cannot say that
Yeah.
I encountered this very famous serial killer. And the reason why I encountered him is because I possibly had gay sex with him.
Yep. Ain't that something?
That is like the craziest thing ever. So I wonder if we'll ever, get like a confession um, out of the two, so the two people who are still survivors, because like I said, they 45 years ago, they have to be at least in their 70s or 80s or possibly
They're
90s.
gonna take it. They're gonna take it to the grave.
You think so? They have to
No
really
one. They
know.
won't. I'm not saying they won't. Maybe let someone know the information, but I'm saying when they're going to die and then have someone else say it, if that makes sense. I don't think they're gonna say anything. I think they're going to be gone. They ain't gonna say nothing.
And the diplomat is still living with injuries from his attack.
For
Wow.
45 years, you live with injuries from your attack, and you still don't say anything.
Still don't say nothing.
Do you think that Doodler himself will say something on his deathbed about who he is?
That'd be interesting.
Well, since the case prayerfully, there's still people around who remember or have seen something or heard something. Hopefully, they're still alive, where they're able to finally this, you know, pin this guy for doing these crimes, because we don't know if he stuck to just San Francisco. He could have the guy that they think is the doodler left San Francisco for a while, and possibly crimes in other areas of the country that are similar to the ones that are in San Francisco. So, and do we even know that is he still killing, even if though he's openly gay? He still has been arrested for other crimes, not murder or anything, but he has been arrested for other crimes over the years. He's no stranger to the judicial system. They have his DNA. He's all his. The thing is, they just don't have enough
Right. And you did say something about hospital
evidence to
records
even
being
anyone.
you did say something about hospital records being destroyed in the 90s. So, in 1974, they wouldn't have known. I mean, the best that they would have been able to do was collect maybe semen at the site, uh, maybe blood tests, maybe, hair or something like that. And hair analysis is not an exact science. So they wouldn't have been they wouldn't have known to collect the kind of DNA evidence that we would need today to identify him, or preserve it, because you did say that one of the hospitals said that they destroyed their records prior to the 1990s already. They destroyed those records. So one of the things that they are going to try to do, I did read this, was they are going to try to use genealogy to track this person, genetic genealogy. Now, they did this with the Golden State Killer. Rape, well, South, what is it? At first he was a South Side rapist, and then he was the Golden State Killer, turned into the Golden State Killer. So they did that, and they captured that person, 2 years ago, in his 70s. And there's a lot of, what is it, the site called Gen Match? or something like that. They use 23andMe to kind of track
Hmm.
their DNA. And they use that as a public record to do the genetic genealogy to track criminals. And they track them through your nieces, nephews, distant relatives, and they find their way to you as a criminal. So that is one thing that they're going to try to do. Um, but I don't know how successful they would be able to be with that unless they have some DNA evidence that they have not revealed at this point. That's
And
the
they
only
have
one.
stuff that they are not revealing.
Yeah.
There has to be information that they're holding back because when I said that we were going to do this episode, the subject, and I was like, we're not really going to have very much to go on because there's not much that is known about the doodler. What is known is the victims and what was going on in the community, and basically the background of everything, much more so than the actual suspect. We don't know anything
Right.
about this person other
No.
than sketches and age progression sketch. That's as much as we know because the surviving victims won't talk. A lot of the people involved, the medical examiner, the original reporter from the San Francisco Chronicle, and also police officers, they have all passed away. And so there's not very much that we know. So it's very interesting to find out, since they reopened the case a couple of years ago, what will be the nail in the coffin for this person? What is going to be like that linchpin for to close this case, to resolve this case? Like, what's missing? What's the one thing that they're holding and just waiting for? Because they know who the person is.
Hmm. Hmm.
What's going to be the thing? So it's going to be, I'm quite sure we'll be watching this, and um, I'm quite sure someone will write a book about this. There's been some books and other documentaries about this, but I want to see exactly what happens with this and whether or not.
If you get a chance, listen to the San Francisco Chronicle podcast. I think it's 8 parts to it. It starts from the beginning. And this journalist is, he has interviewed the detective and some of the family members, and, he's doing his own like investigation of the doodler, but it is very, 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 very interesting. And it's some
It
stuff,
is.
there's some stuff we, because of time, we can't just, talk about that was presented in the podcast, but it's into that podcast, wherever you listen to your podcast. It's the San Francisco Chronicle, the Doodler.
Mhm.
I will post the links
So
for Spotify and Apple Podcast in the description. Also, Brandy, there's another documentary, not specifically talking about the doodler, but there's a documentary that Brandy brought up, talking about the gay community in San Francisco, the history of the gay community in San Francisco. So I will post that as well. It gives you a lot of background on what was going on then. What we think of San Francisco is that San Francisco is a gay haven, but what we don't really consider is when it became that type of a community, when it became open to homosexuality and the LGBT plus community. When that happened, and one of the things that we talked about last night was that one of the things I thought about, what I think about San Francisco, is why it became a safe place, was because it is a port city. And San Francisco was an outpost town during the Manifest Destiny and the gold rush. And during the gold rush, what did you have? You had whorehouses and you had bars. And whorehouses weren't exclusive to women prostitutes. You had male prostitutes as well. Because homosexuality is not new. It's as old as time. So you had some men who had different proclivities and different preferences than as you do now. And I think that continued. So I think there was always a seed in that place because you had people coming in and out all the time. So just think somewhere in the middle of America. You think of some place like Missouri or something like that. You would have had gay people, But you wouldn't have had gay people visiting whorehouses because everyone would know. But you have some place like San Francisco, you got people coming in, you got people leaving. So I can have an encounter and I can leave. I can have an encounter and I can leave. I'm an unknown person here and I can leave. And you still have that today. It is an international city. And there are all these places to hide, which is again why the Doodler was so successful, is because you had people coming in and out and he had places to hide. And I would have to also think that the 5 confirmed victims, and then, there are 16 suspected. How many other people encountered the Doodler?
Yeah.
Because he couldn't have only ended with those 5. How many other people encountered this person and still refused to speak up? Because
in order for him to know in order for him to know the regulars that he dealt with, who was very familiar, these people had to encounter him like every day.
Right. Mm-hmm. What if they weren't a part of that 20% that were open and out? How many people, how many titans of industry, how many other entertainers, how many sons of diplomats and diplomats encountered this very good looking young Black man and are holding that so close to their chest that we'll never know?
Mm-hmm.
That we will never, ever know. And it's crazy because now we think being gay or being lesbian or bisexual, transsexual, that's normal for us now. That's no big deal. That's no big deal. Like, you don't even bat an eye at that. So now we're like, well, why don't you just say something? But these people are still products of their era. And they could still stand to lose face, status, everything if they come out.
Well, there's gay people who've lost their family and everything coming out now, or coming out as gay, coming out as trans. We have so many Black trans women killed every year.
Right.
It's still, even though some things are better, it's still not a safe place for
certain members of these communities. Yeah. So,
mm-hmm.
Well, I'm quite sure we'll be watchful of what happens with this Doodler case. And if something new comes out, we will tell you. As with any of our other cases that we've spoken about, if there's new information and we find it, we'll tell you about it. Like last week, we told you about Move and how they are using the remains of 2 of the children from the 1985 Philadelphia bombing in anthropological classes at Princeton. So once we find new information, we'll tell you. We cannot manufacture information, and we will not. We are very open to being corrected if we misspeak or say something incorrect. So we are open to criticism, but we are not open to respect. Okay. I know that in this era of internet, we can hide behind profile pictures and avatars, but since we are publicly putting our faces on the internet, put yours there too. So if you want to come with disrespect, put your face forward. However, you will still be blocked. Even if we see your face, you will still be blocked because no one wants to see that shit. No one wants to read that shit. No one wants to internalize this because we are not trying to make you internalize anything that we say. Just like you can decline to watch an episode, we can decline to answer or respond to your comments if they're disrespectful. So criticism is fine. Disrespect. So on that note, we will end the show. We'll see you next week for another episode of Black Coffee and Crime. Again, be safe, be kind, and enjoy the second cup.
Be safe, be blessed.
Be blessed. That's what that is. Be blessed. Be blessed in your disrespect, and enjoy. Good night, y'all.